We talked previously about how the identity of the subordinates lie in the position to which they are subordinate. The loyalty of the kingdom rests on the king because the king grants the entity identity by his existence and authority. In Hegel's analysis, this crucial part of the whole identity is thus made socially. The master sees the slaves and rises up to the occasion. The inability of the passive gives rise to the dominance of masculinity and authority. Imagine it like a team game. While every player in the team may be valuable, the members look up to someone to grant them surety of authority. Between hundreds and thousands of choices that can be made at any time in the game by the team, when the captain speaks, he is the arbitrator of reason and conduct himself. No player is above him in the field he dominates. The questions of utmost importance are ultimately decided by hierarchy. The slave removes this burden from his shoulder and hands it to the master. The master is his guide. The hierarchy thus spreads, not from the consent of the slave, but his unwillingness or inability to do what is required and stand up to the task. The master takes up the task for his team. Both mirror each other's identities. The slave feels like a king. The guard of the king is obviously at a more elevated position than a random guard on the street. The slave's opulence shines in his master's success, for that gives him the identity. This is why initially the masters of destiny are treated with utmost respect, for they give voice to the ones who fear they don't deserve it, or afraid to sacrifice to deserve it. The founders are kept close to the heart. The person feels pride in the authority of the one who rules over him, for his grandness he shares with himself, the grandness ultimately collapsing into the summum bonum, the God of the religion himself. The master seeks his identity in his subjects, for that is what he rules over. The lordship has no meaning if there is no one to rule over. The identity of the lowly manifests in his heart. The master accepts their lordship and becomes the necessary authority. Hegel's dialectic shows this unique relationship between the master and slave to be such that both the identities are dependent on this relation. Without this relation, no meaningful relationship exists. The master, thus, is dependent on the slave, and the slave is dependent on the master. Thus, neither the master wishes the demise of the slaves, nor the slave wishes to revolt to gain the place of the master, at least in normal circumstances. Yet it is worth remembering that slaves' acceptance of lordship of the master is not rooted in inherent selflessness. The slave wishes to achieve a fraction of what the master has had, even if in figment of his imagination, but cannot get himself up for the task. The opulence of the master creates a joy in his heart for which he considers himself to be unworthy, realizing the truth of his failure against the existence. This perhaps is best explained in the Christian motive, where a person realizing himself as in a state of perpetual sin and wishing to bask in the glory of the highest kneels down to the one who is the Lord of all. Repent and believe is not just a term intended to give power to some people to guilt others, as is often thought by the people who rebel against the idea of an existent Lord, but it is a statement of a person's own state of mind wherein he, finding himself to be short of a moral good, diminishes his identity to make space for one which can share moments of the glory he envisions, just like a weary customer does for hedonistic desires when he approaches the doors of the house of sin. The social identity is crafted not wholly by the person himself, but by the whole society around him, especially the person he is interacting with. The manifestation of identity from division of consciousness is also responsible for false illusions, which Hegel describes later on. In a nominal sense, the Hegelian thesis seems to be at odds with essentialism, for true nature, essentialists claim, is in the being itself. Yet what the dialectic is against in reality is existentialism. Questioning it, we are arguing that identity is not what a person makes of it, but crafted by the world itself. The dominance hierarchy slowly shifts. In fact, gets reversed. This play of interpersonal identities gets murkier as Hegel goes one step further. But stay with this till the next time we discuss how the loyalties switch.